What's going on, guys? I'm back with another video today, and I'm going to be discussing high school basketball in 2025. Specifically, what you as an athlete can control to get recruited to play at the next level. When I graduated, it was right before COVID happened, so I got to have a pretty normal experience when it came to recruitment. But after COVID happened, there was so many things in the college level that changed. It is a very, very different process than what it was. And I would personally say it is much more difficult to get recruited to play than it used to be. The first big change being NIL money that allows players to represent their name, image, and likeness, and gives them a lot of resources and a lot more money than they used to have. Another big change being the transfer portal rules, which have allowed the athlete to move around virtually to anywhere they want. And along with the transfer portal rules changes, there's also been a lot of eligibility rule changes. So now you see it being more of a common thing that older athletes are able to stay around the college scene for much longer than they used to be, even playing up until late 20s. And while these changes have helped a lot of the athletes who are in college already, the people who are outside of that realm, the high school recruits, have been affected very, very negatively from this. The reason for that being, there is no real reason to take a bet on a high schooler who hasn't learned the ropes of college yet compared to a veteran college player at really any level. Just as a player no longer has to be loyal to a coach or a program throughout the years to see minutes, a coach no longer has to be loyal to you as a player to fill a roster that can be a winning college basketball program, because they can just pick whoever they want from the transfer portal. So the focus points of this video are going to be the goals you should set as a high school recruit, the work you should be putting in to prepare yourself for college, and finally, how you should positively recruit yourself so that you have the most coaches knocking at your door and what coaches are going to want to see on your recruiting page. When it comes to the goals that you're setting as a high school athlete, I'm never going to say don't go for the D1 school, but I'm also going to say you need to keep all of your options open. Do not turn down anyone, no matter what level they are, whether it's Division 3 or whether it's Division 1. You really need to start looking at all of your options, and you need to realize that it's more than just a name, right? Everybody can go and walk on at the big D1 school, and that might look really cool and it might be cool to tell your friends and stuff, but if you're not needed there, it's not going to be the best fit for you. So what I'm saying is go where you're needed, not where you're wanted, because the place that needs you is going to develop you, and they're going to make you better and better. And even if you start at a smaller school like an NAIA or a D3, you are still going to be learning good basketball, and there will be room for you to transfer up. I would say this is probably the most important thing I am going to say in this video, because especially in today's age, Division 1 schools are no longer looking for high school basketball players. They just aren't. It's not your fault. It's just a college coach these days is going to choose a seasoned college player who's played a year or two, maybe at a lower level school, to put on their Division 1 program compared to somebody who is fresh out of high school and is not in the top 100 players in the country. It has nothing to do with your talent or your skill level. It is merely just the fact that you are now competing once you turn 18 with anyone who is, I would say, 17 to 28 or 29 years old for a college roster spot. And that is at any level, not just Division 1. I played in the NAIA, and in my conference, we played against multiple people who were literally 27 years old and married. Playing at a smaller school is also going to be a huge benefit to you as well if you go the JUCO route, because they just added a rule where if you play any time at a JUCO, you're going to get an automatic 4 years on top of your eligibility. And that is insane. Like, JUCOs are already a great place to develop because everybody is there for a different reason, and it is not to stay. You usually have 2 or 3 different types of JUCO players that come in. You have the really good player who was horrible in school, so they couldn't get into the bigger schools, and now they're at the JUCO, spending a year there getting their grades right so they can transfer up. You have the more talented in school type of player who maybe wasn't good enough to go D1 but wants to continue their basketball career and wants to develop more. And then this is kind of in the same category as the first one, but you have the athletes who were really, really good at a higher level, but then they proceeded to get in trouble in some sort of way, and they had to drop back to JUCO to prove themselves and take that route instead of being at a D1 school because they got kicked off their team or whatever happens with those situations. You will see that more than you think. Those guys all have 2 things in common. They're hard workers and they don't want to stay there. The good thing is if you do go to a JUCO straight out of high school, then you're going to be around a bunch of hard workers who are veterans, and they're going to teach you quick. And it might be painful lessons to learn, but they're going to teach you quick how to develop and how to get to that next level. And your reward for going there is going to be an extra 4 years of eligibility once you've done the 2 at that JUCO. Now I'm going to talk about some of the things that you can do as an athlete to prepare yourself for college. The first thing I'm going to say is master a routine and master your form. If you can get into the gym and every time before you really start working on anything, you have a warm-up routine that is going to get you in the best headspace, both physically and mentally, and you have a routine that's going to help master your form, you are going to be a lot more ahead than most people coming out of high school when they get to college. Really take the time to master your shooting, learn to master your form, and to get a lot of reps, good reps where you're focusing on the actual form of your shot and following through to get the best and most consistent finish. If you haven't taken the time to break down your own shooting form, I would say that is very, very important that you do that. And the way you can break it down is just get a video of yourself shooting the basketball and slow it down and look at everything that is going into your shot, what looks a little funny, what looks right, and see what you can change or what you feel can change to get the most consistent shot possible. The reason I'm putting this at such a high importance is because the game of basketball at the college level becomes unbelievably more physical than it is at the high school level. So if you're a talented scorer because you're a physical player in high school, that same play style might not work for you in college. But what will always work and what will always stay true to you in college is going to be the fact that if you're open and you can make an open shot, you're going to probably play. My next piece of advice is going to be to play fundamentally aggressive. This being, if you have any bad habits in high school, maybe you're dancing around with the defender a little bit too much, or you're trying to dribble too much, remove it. You still need to be aggressive, but that aggression needs to be finding the basket or finding your spot in no more than 4 dribbles. A college coach is going to find it much better if you can score within the construct of 4 dribbles than if you take 10 dribbles to score and it's inconsistent or it's flashy. My next piece of advice is going to be very controversial. There's not really a right way to say what I'm going to say, but I'm going to try and explain it in a way that doesn't promote bad basketball, but is also being 100% honest. You need to be a selfish player in order to succeed. Now, what I mean by this is not that you should go out and you should be a ball hog and you should take 10 dribbles every time you come down the court and you should take the worst shot possible. What I mean is if you've ever been to a recruiting showcase or you've ever been around a lot of college coaches, normally somebody's going to give this huge speech about how they aren't looking for the selfish player who's scoring the ball. They are more looking for somebody who's going to make the right plays and swing the ball and reverse it and make the extra pass. And while they might praise that in the beginning, I'm just going to be 100% transparent and honest when I say that. The player who is aggressive and is scoring the basketball and making good plays and is attacking is 99% of the time going to play over to one that is just making good reversals, or is just setting good screens for other people, or is getting the other people on the team open.
Now, I know you just heard that and thought to yourself, obviously. What I should have clarified is that this player, on top of scoring a little bit, was taking tons of bad shots in the process, which in the long run ended up sabotaging you and the rest of your team. And yes, I will stand on this hill. That player probably got more interest from coaches than the rest of the team did.
Do I think that's right? No, not necessarily, but I'm just keeping it completely honest. That's how it is. I've never seen the player who passes up their own shot to get somebody else an open shot be played over the person who's going to take it to the rim and is going to try and just kill someone. I feel like partially it's taken out of context, because whenever you hear, oh, don't be selfish with the ball, you're thinking instant ball reversals, instant swing to the next guy. But I think what they more mean by that is when you get the ball, if you drive in and you have 3 people on you, kick it out. That's the sensible thing to do. Play the right basketball. Don't take a foolish shot. But at the same time, if you don't have 3 people on you and you drive in and it's between you getting a layup or, somebody else getting a contested 3 or maybe not the most open shot, take the layup. Take the layup. And it's kind of going to be the same way with off-ball screens and stuff like that. Like, yeah, it's the unselfish thing. It's the right thing to do to set a down screen for your teammate and to get them open. But in a showcase, I don't necessarily think that any coach is going to honestly tell you, yeah, I'm looking for the player that set the down screen and got this person open, not the person who just knocked down a wide open shot and made themselves look really good. And if you feel like I'm wrong for saying that, please leave a comment down below. I would love to talk more about this. I'm definitely going to do another video talking about just the social politics that basketball has with coaches and players. But as a player, if I were you and you were going to a showcase, don't be afraid to be selfish, because if you can get the job done and you're trying to be unselfish, it's actually more selfish to be unselfish and not just get it done yourself. The last thing I want to touch on is how you should be marketing yourself as a student athlete. If you are over the age of 13 years old and you do not have a basketball Twitter yet, you need to make one as soon as possible. This is going to be probably your most valuable tool for marketing yourself as a recruit. So when you make a Twitter, it needs to have your profile picture being either a basketball picture or a picture of you in class. You need to have the class you're graduating in, your height, your weight, and your GPA. Depending on how far in the high school you are, you might want to include your high school stats, whether that be points, rebounds, assists, throw that all in the bio. And then once all of that has been put in, feel free to put maybe a quote or something, but try to keep it mainly just about basketball and recruiting, because that is going to be your purpose with this page. The next thing you are going to want to do is to put your highlight reel out on that Twitter and really market yourself when you see the opportunity. All the time these days, you can go on Twitter and you'll find college basketball coaches that are saying what position they're looking for or what kind of player they're looking for. Don't be afraid to post your highlights under quite literally every single one of those threads, because you might get a hit or a response back. When a coach does finally hit your line as a player, you also need to keep it professional when you text them or email them. That being, if you're reaching out to a coach, you need to include, hi, coach, plus last name. My name is, for me, it would be Philip Harrison Askey. I was class of 2020, 6'5", all that, plus your highlights. And then talk about how you are going to be very interested in an opportunity to either talk about playing for the team or just something about being interested in their school and in their program. Because remember, these people don't really need you. They don't. There's thousands of other kids who are trying to do this exact thing. So you need to show interest. You can't just wait for them to come to you. If you would like to see a video on how I would personally craft a message to a coach, I would love to make something like that in the future. You just gotta let me know in the comments. And finally, I'm just gonna touch on one obvious thing. I don't know how much of a thing it is anymore with high school basketball, but I know it was huge whenever I was in high school. And that is recruiting pages. When I was in high school, I made the mistake of getting a recruiting profile on NCAA. Now, if you heard about it, they've probably marketed themselves pretty well to you, saying that they're a really good recruiting agency. They're gonna blast your profile, your player profile out to all these schools. Personally, when you really look into it, NCSA is a women's volleyball recruiting site. It is. You're going to get just as much interest from a coach if you just email them, because you can find almost every coach's email online or phone number or Twitter. You just message them on that, compared to dropping a pretty decent sum of cash for even the basic plan to potentially get a few matches off of that. I personally don't know of any recruiting pages that are strictly for men's basketball that aren't like the ESPN Hot 100, Rivals, and I think there's like a 24/7 one as well. Those are good ones, but again, I don't think it's really necessary to put the money there when you could really just market yourself on Twitter, not spend any money, reach out directly to the coaches, and your main problem might be that it's just a little harder to find certain schools, especially the smaller ones that might have a really weird and long name. Anyways, that's just about gonna be all for this video. If you guys enjoyed, please like, comment, subscribe. You already know the deal. If you guys didn't enjoy, or you guys had maybe an issue with something I said or thought that I wasn't like speaking correctly on this, please leave a comment. I would love to debate you in the comments about this, because everybody's college journey is going to be different from the next. So what I experienced in college might not be your experience, but I'm just trying to give the best advice that I could give if I were to be a recruit in high school tomorrow, because the game has changed a lot. And if you aren't ready to adapt to those changes, or you don't have anybody around you who is helping you to adapt to those changes, you might be a really talented player that misses out on the opportunity to play at the next level. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. Peace.